Our first lesson in macroeconomics is about macroeconomic measurements, namely inflation and unemployment. So, lesson 1, macroeconomic measurements. Inflation and unemployment. Well, inflation and unemployment are the twin evils of macroeconomics. Why they are the twin evils of macroeconomics? Because inflation and unemployment impose high psychological costs on the society. They impose high psychological costs on the society. Rising unemployment is linked to rising crimes, mental disorders, and suicide. With inflation, the purchasing power of individuals will become weaker, and over time, their currency will worth less and come by less. These variables, inflation and unemployment, are closely related. When inflation increases, unemployment tends to go down. One major model that describes or measures this relationship is called Phillips curve. Phillips curve says that when inflation increases, the unemployment rate tends to decrease. Well, this theory of the Phillips curves was considered valid until the early 1970s, when the oil crisis took place in the Middle East. This oil crisis has caused a severe recession in the United States. So, as a result of this severe recession in the United States, the Central Bank of the United States, which is the Federal Reserve Bank, engaged in printing high amount of money. And so it increases the money supply in order, and the main purpose of the central bank was to counter this severe problem that it experiences because of the oil crisis that took place in the Middle East. So the increase in the money supply in the United States, in order to counter this severe case or severe recession, has led to inflation. So this new situation of combined inflation and recession was named stagflation. Because of this new situation of combined inflation and recession, economists do not blindly follow the Phillips curves anymore. So now let's talk about the price level, and from this we're going to move to talk about the computing of inflation. Notice that economists usually distinguish between the price and the price level. The price means or refers to a single price, like the price of this marker. However, the price level is a weighted average of the prices of all goods and services. So now, how economists usually measures or compute the price level. The economists measure the price level by constructing a price index. So the price index, one major price index is the consumer price index. So now we're talking about the price level is measured by using the consumer price index. CPI. We can refer to Consumer Price Index by CPI. So this CPI is a major price index. It is sometimes called the cost of living index. This index, of course, is based upon a representative group of goods and services that a typical consumer usually buys. That group of representative goods and services are sometimes called market basket. So we are talking about here market basket. Now, this market basket, as I said, consists of a group of goods and services that a typical consumer usually purchases. So now, in order to understand how this index is calculated, let us give an example. Let's write the formula of calculating this price index and give an example to illustrate how this index is calculated. So we can say that CPI in a given year is equal combined price of the market basket in a given year over the combined price of the same basket market basket in a reference or base year. Times, of course, 100. So as you can see, in order to calculate the consumer price index, the CPI, we need to have 2 years. One, of course, the given year, the current year, and the other one is the base year. A base year or a reference year is a year, okay, it's a yardstick year or is a reference year that serves as a basis of comparison of prices of other years. So this is how we calculate the CPI in a given year. So in order to understand exactly how we calculate the CPI, let's give an example of a simple economy that produces a small number of goods and services, of course, and see how the CPI is calculated. Say that a small economy is producing three goods. Let's say oil, sugar, and chicken. Now, using the following quantities and prices in 2010 and 2015. Assume that 2010 is the base year. Is the base year or reference year. So let us use this formula to calculate this, okay? Now we have the market basket, as you can see, consists of 3 goods, namely oil, sugar, and chicken. So we write here market basket. Oil, sugar, chicken. Now the quantities here, let's say we have quantities 5, 6, and 10. Prices in 2010, let's say are 6, 4, and 3. Now, the combined price, I mean here the total value of the market basket in 2010. The combined price in 2015 means the total value of the basket in 2015. So now, I will say that value of the basket in 2010 is going to be equal, we just multiply the prices per item, of course, times 5. We have 5 kilos or 5 amount of gallons of oil. So 5 times 6, we get 30. 5 times 6, we get 30. We get 6 times 4. 4 is the price per item. So 4 times 6, 6 times 4 here. Okay, we get 24. And we get 10 times 3. 10 times 3, we get 30. So the total amount over here is going to be 84. Now we're going to do the same thing for the combined price of the basket, the market basket in 2015. So now prices, as you can see, in 2015 it's going to equal 8, 5, and 4. So here, value of the basket in 2015 is going to equal, we multiply, of course, the quantity, which is fixed, of course, the weights are fixed, the quantities are fixed in both, of course, years, in 2010, which is the current year, and in 2010, which is the base year, and 2015, which is the current year, or the given year, okay? So now we put 5 times 8, we get 6 times 5, and we get 10 times 4. So we add these, of course, we get here 40, 70, 110. So we get the value here, 110. Now, we use the formula I just stated just a couple of minutes ago, which is CPI in the given year. Which is the given year? It is 2015. In 2015, it's going to be equal, which is, of course, combined price of the market basket in 2015 over the combined price of the market basket in 2010, which is equal 110 over 84 times 100. And we get over here, of course, 131. We got 131. This is, of course, the CPI of 2015. Now the question, what is the CPI in the base year? If we said that 2010 is the base year. Now we calculated the CPI in 2015. This is the given year. Okay, now what is the CPI in the base year, which is 2010? Okay, the CPI in the base year is going to be, the formula is equal the combined price. Now, the CPI in the 2010, which means the CPI in a given year. So it's going to be the compound price in 2010 over the compound price in the base year, which is still the same, 2010 times 100. And so the answer is going to be 100. So here we can say CPI in base year, now in year 2010, is going to equal combined price of the basket in what? In the given year. The given year is the base year 2010 over the combined price of the basket in also the reference year or the base year, which is still 2010. In the base year, which is 2010 times 100. So what you get here? These cancel out. So what you end up here? You end up with 100. So therefore, the CPI in base year is equal always 100. So the CPI in the base year is always 100, as we just proved. Now, after calculating the CPI, because the price level is stated as a price index, so now we have a measure of the price level. Therefore now, once we calculated the CPI, now we can calculate the inflation. So now, inflation, of course, is the increase in the price level, which is measured on an annual basis. So now, how to calculate the inflation? Inflation is going to be equal CPI new minus CPI old over CPI old times 100. So we know that the CPI in 2015, we come up with 131. And the CPI in the base year, which is 2010, is 100. And 2015 is 131. So how I'm going to find the inflation rate in 2015? So inflation in 2015 is going to equal CPI 2015 minus CPI 2010 over CPI 2010 times 100, which is equal 131 minus 100 over 100 times 100. We get what? 31%. Come up with what? 31%. So now, as you can see, the percentage change in the prices between these 2 years is calculated using this formula. Okay? So as far as the inflation, now we can, of course, find the inflation rate between this and that. Okay? Now this is, as you can see, the percentage change between, these 2 years is 31%. What that means that the percentage change in prices between 2010 and 2015. It means that the cost of living increased 31%. What actually it means? It means that a good that cost $1 in 2010, now it costs $1.31 in 2015, because the prices have increased 31%. Okay, so a good that cost $1 in 2010, now it costs $1.31 in 2015. Now, once we calculated the inflation, because our objective in this lesson is to know how to calculate the inflation and unemployment. So now let's focus on inflation. Now, once we calculated the inflation rate, now we need to realize or understand how our income, varies or changes. We should know whether our income is keeping up with inflation or not keeping up with inflation. So how we can do that? So let's look over here. So whether our income keeping up with inflation or not depends on whether prices increases more than our income increases. So let's give examples to realize or to see how are we doing. Okay, first let's look at these three cases. Now let us discuss three cases. First case, our income is keeping up with inflation. Here we have to show that our income increases by the same percentage as inflation. So if inflation increases by 5% and our income increases by 5%, then we say our income is keeping up with inflation. Okay, we can look at the problem from another kind. So if the real income is keeping the same or is constant, then also we say that our income is keeping up with inflation. Let's give an example and see how our income is keeping up with inflation. Say that Rami earns $10,000 in year one, and he earns $15,000 in year two. The CPI in year one is 100, and the CPI in year two is equal 150. Okay, now let's look at how our income is doing. Okay, let's see the percentage increase in our income. So percentage change in Rami's income is equal, of course, 15,000 minus 10,000 over 10,000 times 100. We get here 50%. So as you can see, Rami's income has increased 50% between these 2 years. What about the inflation rate? The inflation rate, as you can see here, inflation or the change in the prices between these 2 years is that it's going to equal 150 minus 100 over 100 times 100. We get 50%. So as you can see, the percentage increase in Rami's income is the same as the inflation rate. So over there you get 50%, the increase in Rami's income, and you get the inflation is 50%. Therefore, he is keeping up with inflation. We can, of course, use the real income to see whether he is keeping up with inflation or not. If the real income is constant between these 2 years, then we say Ramiz is keeping up with inflation. Let's look at the real income. Okay, real income in year 1 is equal $10,000 over 100 times 100, which is equal $10,000. Real income in year 2 is going to be equal $15,000 over 150 times 100, which is equal, of course, then I have here $10,000. So this means that real income is constant, which means here real income is constant, no change. This means that, yes, indeed, Rami is keeping up with inflation. Let's give an example where Ramiz is not keeping up with inflation, less than keeping up with inflation, okay? The second case, not keeping up with inflation. This implies that what? Real income falls between these 2 years, okay? Example, say Fadi earns $100,000 in year 1 and $150,000 or $120,000 in year 2. The CBI in year 1 is equal 100 and the CBI in year 2 is 150. So percentage change in income is equal 120,000 minus 100,000 over 100,000 times 100, which is equal 20%. Okay, so as you can see, income has increased 20% between these 2 years. What about the inflation rate? Inflation, which is the percentage change in prices between these 2 years, is going to equal, of course, 150 minus 100 over 100 times 100, which is equal 50%. So as you can see, inflation has gone up much more than the increase in income. Inflation is 50%. The change in prices, the increase in prices is 50%. And the increase in his income is 20%. So we have here, we can see that Rami or Fadi is not keeping up with inflation, okay? So he is less than keeping up with inflation. So we can see that also by calculating the real income. So calculating the real income. Real income in year 1 is going to be equal 100,000 over 100 times 100, which is equal 100,000. Now, real income in year 2 is going to be equal 120,000 over 150 times 100. So now we calculate the real income in year 2 and we come up with 80,000. As you can see, what happens to the real income? Real income falls. So here we can say that real income falls. This means that it's not keeping up with inflation. It's not keeping up with inflation. Okay, real income falls. So here we can see that we can basically figure out whether our income is really keeping up with inflation or not keeping up with inflation by going through these steps. Okay, so when our income is keeping up with inflation, then the real income is constant. When our income more than keeping up with inflation, then the real income is increasing. When our income is not keeping up with inflation, then the real income is falling, is decreasing. So now we finish from here. We move to talk about how economists convert dollars from, or currency from one year to another. Remember that a salary that used to be, let's say, $10,000 at 20 or 30 years ago doesn't buy that much today. Why is that? Because of the increase in the consumer price index. So how now we can see, how can we find out about the value of incomes or salary, when of course talking about it is value from one year to another. Usually economists convert past salary to current dollar salary by using the following formula. So economists convert past salary into current salary by using the following formula. Salary in current dollars is equal past salary times CPI current over CPI past. Let us give an example to illustrate how this formula is used. Say that, of course, here we're talking about salary, but it can be used for anything. Let's say you bought a house in 1980 that you paid for it $20,000. So you bought a house in 1980 for $20,000. The question, what is the value of the house in today's dollars? Let's say we're talking about 2020. So value of the house in 2020 is equal, of course here, assume Of course, CPI in 1980 is equal 90. Okay? And CPI in 2020 is equal 300. So let's apply the formula, okay? So value of the house in 2020 is going to equal 20,000 times 300 over 90. So now we come up with 67,000. About 67,000. So now the house that you paid $20,000 for it in 1980, now its value is supposed to be worth $67,000. Why this happens? Because of the increase or the change in the consumer price index. Back in 1980, the CPI was 90. However, in 2020, the CPI is 300. That's why that house that you paid $20,000 for it in 1980, now it should worth $67,000. This is because of the change in the consumer price index. The consumer price index has increased many times from between these 2 years. Therefore, the value of the house back in 2020 is going to worth $67,000.